Patience Gray's Honey from a Weed is one of the most important and best-loved cookbooks of the 20th century, yet its author remains little known beyond a small circle of food writers and critics. Such is the fate, perhaps, of a woman who lived for more than 30 years in a remote corner of southern Italy, without electricity, modern plumbing, or telephone, and like to say, deliberately misquoting Gertrude Stein, that she wrote only for herself and friends. As her publisher Alan Davidson once observed, she simply wished her accumulated knowledge to be preserved in a permanent, beautiful form for the benefit of her grandchildren. Alan rescued the typescript from oblivion, and when Honey from a Weed was published in 1986, it was immediately hailed as a classic. Gourmet described it as magically idiosyncratic, and placed Patience alongside Patrick Leigh Fermor, Freya Stark, and Elizabeth David. In an early review of Honey from a Weed, John Thorne wrote that only D.H. Lawrence was her equal in conveying the rich physical sensuality of Mediterranean life. Cookbook editor Judith Jones, who reviewed the manuscript for Knopf, but knew that they would never dare publish it, said she fell in love with it and copied several pages to read again when I needed that kind of refreshment. In an essay titled Eat or Die, the late novelist Jim Harrison called Patience a wandering Bruce Chatwin of food. In other words, she was much more than just a food writer. Honey from a Weed, part recipe book, part travelogue, and part memoir, offered a singularly evocative portrait of a remote and fast disappearing way of life. Following the publication of Honey from a Weed, food writers sought Patience out, and many made the pilgrimage to Puglia to see her, a testament to the power of her work. She was profiled by Paul Levy, appeared on the BBC's food programme with Derek Cooper, and was featured along with her partner, the Belgian sculptor Norman Momens, in the Italian magazine Casa Vogue. Although she enjoyed the attention, Patience was rather guarded about her own life. This applied not only to visiting journalists and food writers, but to friends and family as well. There was an aura of secrecy about her, a sense that her past was somehow shuttered, which Patience did little to dispel. Patience loved secrets, secret rooms, dark corners, mysteries, and so on, her friend Ulrika Voswinkel recalled. This aura of secrecy was enhanced by her interest in astrology and mysticism, and her vast folkloric knowledge of edible plants and mushrooms. She shared her workspace in Puglia, to which others were rarely admitted, with a large black snake, and often ruminated on the symbolic meaning of the scorpion, which happened to be Patience's astrological sign. She was born on Halloween. It is perhaps not surprising, then, that several people, including Paul Levy in his profile for The Observer and the Wall Street Journal, described Patience as a modern-day witch. Yet in the few interviews she gave, she proffered tantalizing clues to her earlier life. A great-grandfather who was a Polish rabbi, surviving the war years in a primitive cottage in rural Sussex, where she first learned to forage. Raising 2 children out of wedlock in post-war London. Before she embarked on her Mediterranean odyssey in 1962, Patience worked closely with some of the leading designers and landscape architects of her day. She edited a book on indoor plants and gardens in 1952, was assistant to the head of the School of Graphic Design at the Royal College of Art until 1955, and in the late 1950s and early 1960s designed textiles for Edinburgh weavers and wallpapers for Wallpaper Manufacturers Limited. She was also the first editor of The Woman's Page at The Observer from 1958 to 1962, and her weekly column reflected her background in art and design.